The wind howled like a wounded beast, slamming against the old, weathered walls of the lighthouse. Rain lashed against the murky glass of the lantern room, distorting the dim light that barely pierced the night's darkness. I, a young keeper named Jaeger, had started my first night shift on this godforsaken patch of land in the middle of the cold sea. The old keeper, Uncle Misha, had looked at me strangely before leaving, sighed, and muttered under his breath, "Beware the whispers, Jaeger. They bring no good here." I had just chuckled then, dismissing his words as old age eccentricity. What whispers could there be in a stone tower in the middle of a raging sea? The first few hours passed peacefully. The rhythmic rotation of the lens, the howling of the wind outside, the familiar sounds of the lighthouse. But around midnight, I began to notice strange things. First, it seemed like someone was quietly scratching at the door on the ground floor. I went down to check. No one. The wind was howling louder. That must be it. Returning to the top, to the lantern room, I felt an icy draft, even though all the windows were tightly closed. The flame in the oil lamp flickered, as if frightened by something unseen. And then I heard it for the first time, the whisper, quiet, barely audible, like someone's breath right next to my ear. The words were indistinguishable, but in the sound itself, there was a longing, a deep sorrow. I looked around, no one. Probably just the wind playing tricks. I tried to reassure myself again, but an inexplicable unease settled within me. The whisper became more insistent, closer. Now it seemed to be coming directly from the walls of the lighthouse. Sometimes I thought I heard fragments of words, someone's sobs. Fear began to slowly grip me. I tried to distract myself, reading an old book, but the whisper permeated everything, filling the entire space. The deeper the night became, the stronger the whisper grew. Now it no longer sounded like the wind. It was someone's voice, full of torment and despair. It began to feel like someone invisible was wandering the stairs of the lighthouse, peering into the rooms, calling my name. Once, when the whisper almost turned into a scream, I couldn't take it anymore and looked out the window. The rain had stopped, but the sea remained restless, black, and bottomless. And suddenly, on the crest of one of the waves, I thought I saw a pale figure. A woman in a flowing dress, with long dark hair that seemed to stream across the water. She was looking at the lighthouse. No, it seemed she was looking directly at me. The figure disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared. But the whisper did not stop. It became even more personal, as if someone was telling me their terrifying story right in my ear. I felt an unseen presence growing stronger, colder. At one point, it felt like someone touched my shoulder. I spun around sharply, no one. But the whisper became almost tangible. It seemed to vibrate in the air. I couldn't bear it any longer. Grabbing the lantern, I rushed down the spiral staircase, stumbling and almost falling in the darkness. I needed to get out of here, to run as far as possible from this cursed place. When I reached the door leading outside, it suddenly slammed shut right in front of my face. I yanked the handle locked. My heart pounded wildly in my chest. I was trapped. The whisper was coming from everywhere. It felt like the very walls of the lighthouse were speaking to me, telling some terrible, ancient tragedy. I covered my ears with my hands, trying to drown out the voices, but they seeped into my very soul. I don't know how much time passed before dawn broke. With the first rays of sunlight, the whisper began to subside until it disappeared completely. The door was unlocked. When the relief keeper arrived in the morning, he found me sitting in the corner of the room, completely catatonic. I couldn't speak, just stared at him with a blank gaze. Later, I learned the history of the Old Lighthouse. Many years ago, on a stormy night, the lighthouse keeper lost her daughter, who was washed away by a wave. They say her ghost still wanders the tower, mourning her loss, and her whisper is heard by those who stay here overnight. I never went back to that lighthouse, but even now on quiet nights, it sometimes seems to me that I hear a faint, sad whisper carried from afar, from the cold sea coast.